Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a closer look at and fully installing and walking through the NAVOS OE style navigation unit available for the 2010 to 2014 Mustang. Right off the bat, I want to mention, guys, this is going to work with any package you have in your S197. If you have sync, if you don't have sync, if you have the nav package or without the navigation package, if you have dual climate zones, if you have heated seats, if you have none of those, if you have the absolute base model with no options, this is gonna work no matter what. No cutting, no splicing, none of that nonsense. As a matter of fact, our 2014 GT I'm sitting in right now came with absolutely nothing as far as additional options. It had the base model, no touchscreen, no navigation, no heated seats, no backup camera, none of that, and it's all gonna be built into this to make sure it has all of those functions. So the biggest upgrade possible is gonna be for the guys who have nothing just like we do here. Although I will say, if you do have a lot of those options, you get to retain them with this unit. Some of those even are upgraded with this unit. I'll give you guys a full walkthrough of everything I'm talking about in just a minute. I'll show you guys all the details, and as far as the install, I'm gonna take you through every single step from start to finish. I'll take you through all of the additional harnesses for all of the guys with the additional options, and I'll show you what you can and cannot do with them, what you should and shouldn't do, and that's coming in just a little bit, so you want to stick around toward the end of the video. But for now, let's give you a couple of features built into this thing. First off, you do get sync compatibility. That's a huge thing right there. I will say it's not completely reusing Sync's functionalities the same way. It's not going to be the Sync software, but you are getting those exact same features with a touch-to-talk functionality. Connects to your smartphone, uses smartphone links like Siri and OK Google. You're gonna get dictation for text. You can dictate music, get live turn-by-turn directions with the navigation, all of which can be controlled with your voice, and that voice does have a button straight underneath of the touchscreen. As you can see, the unit itself blends in perfectly with the interior trim of your S197. Our center console is completely stock. You can see the color match is almost flawless. No indication whatsoever that this is an aftermarket unit. If I hopped in this, I would think this is OEM. After all, it is the OE style nav from NAVOS. I think they did a really good job as far as fitment. There is absolutely no gaps around the edges. It just fits perfectly. It snaps right into place as you would imagine. Has factory bolt holes to screw in using the factory hardware. All of that is absolutely mint as far as fitment. Functionality wise, the user interface is super easy to follow. It's got very clear direction, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm gonna take you through all of that when we're done here. Keep in mind, all of this pretty much stays the same. There are a couple of new buttons that are relocated, but again, we'll get to more of that in just a second. As far as the unit, you're getting a 9-inch display, 1024 by 600 resolution, fully touchscreen in every way, shape, and form, very interactive. You're also getting built-in navigation. It has a nav SD card slot, a micro SD card slot at the bottom with preloaded IGO Primo software. All North American maps are included, up to 17,000 points of interest. You get 2D and 3D modeling, topography, and 3D viewing of most major cities. So if you're rolling through Philly like we would be here, you'll get 3D viewing of skyscrapers, so on and so forth. That's really cool, along with up to 17,000 points of interest. So you'll see some of those locations pop up along with street names, so on and so forth. So I think that's a really cool function that you have built into nav. Again, if you don't have the factory navigation, that's one of the biggest points of interest, I think, for the unit itself. With the exception of the touchscreen, I think the touchscreen is going to be the biggest upgrade for you. One of the other things it has built in is reverse and backup camera ready capabilities. If you already have a factory backup camera or an aftermarket universal backup camera, it does work with this. There's a harness included in the kit that hooks up right underneath the unit and the center console that'll run straight back to the camera. So you can retain the function if you already have it in your vehicle, but if you don't have the backup camera, all you need to do is pick a camera up separately, and you already have the functionality and software built into this nav unit. That's really cool, I think, as well. The same logic will apply to guys with sync. If you do have sync, you're retaining the capabilities of sync. If you do not have sync, you're not necessarily getting the sync, but you are getting all of the functionalities that come along with it, hooking up to your smartphone. Now, aside from that, you're getting all the basic stuff you get from a radio, right? AM, FM, Sirius XM is ready, but you also have to pick up that dongle separately, not included in the kit. There's a separate Sirius XM module that would get hooked up to the back. If you are interested in upgrading to that, I think now would be the best time while you have it uninstalled. You can hook all of that up when you need to. Otherwise, you can upgrade to that in the future. Aside from the AM, FM regular radio capabilities, you have full Bluetooth connectivity built in. You're getting the GPS antenna to make GPS signaling happen, but you'll be hooking that up behind here. You're getting antenna capabilities to make sure you get regular radio reception. A lot of really cool stuff in the kit. All of this comes in right around $800. That might sound like a good chunk of change to some guys, but if you have the base model Mustang, it's a couple $1,000s in factory options that you actually get to retain and you get to include with this kit. So 800 bucks for a guy with no options and a base model like we have, I think it's a very worthwhile price, especially for something that is as high quality as the Navos unit and as comprehensive as this thing. This is just going to be a flawless unit to install. I personally think there was no hiccups whatsoever. Everything you could possibly need has been thought of ahead of time by Navos to make sure this is all included properly. With that said, I'm going to give the install 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. No splicing, no cutting, no modifications, none of that nonsense. Every single harness is plug and play. I think that is a huge selling point in my opinion. There are some aftermarket ones out there that require cutting and splicing of factory harnesses, and you have to heat shrink some things, maybe solder a couple wires. None of that nonsense needed. If you ever wanted to revert back to your factory unit, you can do it. None of this is a permanent transformation. I think a huge point there. I'm gonna walk you guys through every single possible step of the install. Even if you have a bunch of options that we don't have, I'm gonna show you guys where and how those wiring harnesses would be used. For the guys like me who have no options whatsoever in a base model, I'm gonna show you guys how to install the bare minimum to make sure everything is installed properly. Literally every possible scenario, I'm gonna take you through and explain all of it. The touchscreen, everything on the menus, customizations, so on and so forth. So let's get to it. The tools used in this install include an impact gun or a 1/4 inch ratchet, an extension, 7mm deep socket, and a panel removal tool. Before we jump into taking our factory nav and whole head unit out of place, I just wanted to give you a quick side-by-side comparison of what the Navos one looks like versus our 14 GT's absolute base model interior. This is the biggest change you'll see. Of course, some packages will see something different as far as the OEM look, but as you can see, we don't have the touchscreen. We have the really small, maybe 2-inch tall screen, something that displays just a small amount of digital info. Going from that to the 9-inch touchscreen, biggest difference between the two. But one of the biggest things I wanted to point out here is how close it looks to the OEM as far as fitment, materials, paint, things like that. The trim here, identical to the trim on the factory one. The button layout is a little bit different, but the way the buttons have been designed, the way the knobs have been designed, it looks all OEM. As you can see, we're going from something that's pretty dated, pretty outdated. This counting here for the phone is extremely outdated. That's something that, in my opinion, looks very 90s in a 2014. Get rid of that stuff. The Navos completely changes that up. We're focusing a lot on the multimedia up top. The bottom bar focuses a lot on the AC controls, whereas the factory option is just kind of all over the place. We're going from the phone to multimedia as far as text, it's scanning. The whole scan thing is very old, outdated as well. Clock number has a button on the display here, very different. CD players you don't really see anymore. That's pretty outdated. That's one of the functions, that's the only function you're not going to retain on the new Navos screen, but you replace that with the capability of, Bluetooth, which this does not. They're also going to replace that with the fact that you can plug in a USB stick and have multimedia on the screen. So while you're losing a CD player, you're gaining a lot as well. I'm not sure a lot of people are going to be too upset about that. Going down a little bit further, you get the volume knobs. Those are being replaced by the knobs here. Tuning is here as well. So you do get that aspect getting recreated. The bottom bar, the factory one, focuses a lot on your AC. That looks very similar up top here, but again, it changes a little bit for the guys who have the dual climate controls down at the bottom. That's more or less built into the screen here. So just a quick side-by-side, you can see a lot of the differences between the two, but also you can see how closely this looks like it should have come on the S197. I just think this should be a standard option. Which is now one of the things you'd expect from the S550. But if you have an S197 and you're jealous of the new gen, you can pick this up and get so much more out of your interior than you would with the factory one. Now, I kind of want to just shut up and show you guys how to take this out. So I'm going to set this aside and we'll get started on the uninstall. All right, kicking things off for the install here, if you have a 6-speed manual transmission, you're gonna need to twist off your shift knob. If you have an automatic transmission, leave that shift knob in place, grab a panel removal tool and pop off the chrome bezel trim around the shift boot. Since we have the manual, we're just gonna rotate and remove the shift knob. It's literally just screwed on by hand, just like a light bulb, and set it aside. All right, we're just gonna set this down here on the floor. Now from here, we're gonna have to remove the entire middle center console here. Now in order to do that, open up that center console, and I find it easier, instead of trying to pry with tools, you can just open up that cup holder, but instead of opening it all the way, just stick your hand in that crack, and we're gonna start lifting up to disconnect it. Just like that. Lift up enough, it'll snap out of place. Disconnect any wiring here. Now some models may have a little bit more wiring than others. Ours doesn't have anything connected here since we have the absolute basest of base models. So with that said, we're gonna lift that up. Nothing to unplug here, but you are gonna wanna unplug your center console buttons for your trunk latch, for your hazard lights. For that, it's just a pinch and pull. You're gonna pinch that red connector right at the bottom, pull it off, and your whole center console comes out of place. We can set that down outside. I find it easier just to put it on the carpet so it doesn't get scratched up. At this point, there are two 8mm bolts at the bottom of the factory unit. One on the left, one on the right. You can grab a ratchet or an impact gun if you have room for it and get those off. All right, so I know I said 8mm and some guys may have 8mm bolts. Ours are actually 7. So I've got a 7mm deep socket, an impact gun, and an extension here. Now again, if you don't have enough room, a simple ratchet does the trick. We're just gonna back these screws out. You wanna hold on to all screws that you're removing from this kit. Make sure you don't lose them. Now the next 3 steps, including the steps we just did for these 2 bolts, will be slightly different for the guys with a factory navigation unit. Keep that in mind moving forward. But for now, you want to grab a panel removal tool, something with a flat edge. You're going to insert it into the side here and pry off the factory unit. You want to do this very gently. Start working those edges off. You'll see there are clips on the edges holding that in place. Now the next step here, before we can get it off, there is an HVAC connector. You want to make sure you're disconnecting that. You're just going to pinch and pull up. There we go. Put a little elbow grease into it, you'll get that disconnected. From here, we'll need to remove those 6 white clips. Those are actually going to transfer over to our Navos unit. So what we're going to do is just pry up on one side. Be sure not to snap these. They are pretty fragile. You just want to pull up on one side until they disconnect. Set them aside. If you need to, you can use that panel removal tool to help you pull off the inside and it'll just snap right up. All right, for this next step, we're on the interior of our factory unit. We're gonna split this up into 2 sections. We have display section A and section B. Focus on section A at first. Now keep in mind the bolt sizes will vary depending on your factory unit and your factory options. If you have factory nav, it'll be a little different. Ours again has those 7mm bolts. There's 4 holding in section A. Also, I recommend switching over to a ratchet if you were using an impact gun at first like I was. These are very close quarter sections, so it makes it easier to have a ratchet instead. Put our extension in 7mm on these bolts and just lightly remove them and set them aside. You want to make sure you're keeping these in a safe place. Finish those couple of threads off with my hand. At this point, we should be able to pull back that factory nav unit. For display A, we're going to disconnect the connector right behind that by pinching and pulling off. Set this aside. Moving on to the bottom section, section B, we're going to do the same thing, remove all 4 bolts in each of the corners. Just a quick tip here, if any of these fall into the dash or behind here, if you're working on part A, you can always use a magnet, like a long magnet, to retrieve them. It's happened a couple times in the past with me, so I always find that's an easy thing to have on deck. So if you have a magnet on deck, you can use that to retrieve your bolts. And pull back on part B of our nav. Now this does have connectors, but they are pretty tightly connected to the back, so you're just gonna reach your hand back there, and I know you guys can't see it at the moment, but we're basically just gonna do the same thing we've done to the previous ones. Pinch and disconnect. Now that those are disconnected, you're just gonna pull back on that and set this aside. So here are those connectors. There's the two larger ones that just pinch and disconnect, just like this at the top. This third one, just pull straight back and it disconnects. So now we can set this part B aside. Now for the most part, the uninstall portion of the video is out of the way, our nav unit's out of the way, everything's disconnected, but there are a couple things that you have to change over depending on what trim you have, what factory options you have, and I wanna cover all the bases. Now, like I said in the beginning, this is a completely bone stock, base model, no options kind of car. But if you do have some of those additional options, such as dual climate control, there's one thing you will have to transfer over. So for the guys with dual climate control, on the back side of your center console that we removed in the beginning of the video, on the underside, right around here, will be your temperature sensor for your dual climate control. That is right underneath of the cup holder. So grab a T20 Torx bit, remove the two T20 screws holding that sensor in place. You're gonna have to relocate that. So we're gonna relocate that essentially to underneath of the passenger side dash panel. Underneath the panel, there is a gap between where the panel meets the carpeting at the bottom. You can essentially store away that sensor in that gap. Now, again, there's nothing really securing it. You'll just kind of be stuffing it in there. It has that open panel that holds it securely in place, and that's a good spot for it. If you want, you can use 3M tape to keep it in place, anything like that. But most guys will just store it away in that little open panel. So that was worth noting here. Dual climate control guys only have to worry about that. Since we don't have that in our vehicle, I'm just gonna set that back aside. But from here, we're going underneath of where that panel was. Go right down to where the cup holder was, open up your center console, and we're gonna disconnect the harness connecting our aux cord. From here, we're gonna disconnect the cable connecting to our factory aux cord. Once that's disconnected, we're gonna start plugging in some of the harnesses included in the kit. The first thing is going to be the factory integrated aux connector. That is gonna go right in to the factory location. Basically, it's the same OEM harness. Now to make life a little easier for you guys to see, I'm actually just gonna pop out that factory aux connector. Now you guys do not need to do this, but just to give you the ability to see here, we're gonna take the integrated factory aux connector harness included in the kit and plug that right into the back. That'll snap right into place. It looks exactly like your factory one. So we're gonna pop this back into place. Now this harness, you can start tucking down here. This harness is gonna plug into the optional factory input harness included in the kit. Obviously red to red, white to white, taking those caps off. Perfect. Now this, for now, we're just gonna set inside. And the next couple of steps I'm gonna mention are just for sync owners. Now, if your vehicle is equipped with sync, these next couple of steps you wanna pay attention to. Our 2014 GT we're working on today is not equipped with sync, so I'm unable to show you guys the steps physically, but I wanna mention them because they are critical if you wanna retain those sync functionalities. With that said, sync guys, you're gonna go into your glove box. Just drop that down like you normally would. We need to lower this even lower than it comes when you just unlatch it. An easy way to do this, you can either put pressure on it all around on each side and it'll pop loose, or you can pinch in the sides to disconnect the side of it and it'll lower it even farther. You can just keep doing that until it drops all the way down like that. So now we're even farther. Back there, you'll find your sync module. On that sync module, you're gonna disconnect the USB cable. Grab the Navos sync adapter included in the kit. It's another one of the harnesses, and they are labeled in the instruction manual as well. You're gonna grab the sync adapter for Navos, you're gonna hook it in to that factory sync USB. From there, route that cable, the Navos adapter, from the inside of the glove box to the center here where your nav unit's gonna go. Pretty simple. Unplug the USB, plug in the adapter from the kit labeled sync adapter, run the rest of that cable to the center here to plug into the back of the unit. Simple stuff. Now, of course, because we don't have sync in our vehicle, we're unable to show you that, but I just wanted to run you through it. All right, now I know we talked about everything that the guys with sync equipped vehicles need to do to retain their sync functionality. I know I talked about what you need to do with the sync USB adapter in the glove box, but for the guys who do not have sync equipped vehicles, this is how you get those sync functionalities with your smartphone. Now, guys with sync are able to take advantage of Apple CarPlay and Android Link. This is how you plug your phone in to have that for the guys without sync. Now, I'm gonna untwist this harness. This is essentially a USB cord that extends into your glove box so you can plug in your iPhone or your Android or whatever the smartphone may be, or your tablet. Now, one end is male, one end is female. The male end is what's gonna go into the back of your nav unit. The female end is essentially what your USB cable would plug into and then go to your phone. Now, of course, you can put this anywhere. Some guys might want to get creative with it and feed it through underneath of your center console and take it to where your aux cable plugs in. You can cut a hole in that to get this to fit. It has a lip around the edges, so it'll sit in there nicely if you did want to modify that. But if you don't want to do any cutting or any of that stuff and get real fancy about it, you can just feed it into your glove box. That's what we're going to do today. We've got this, untangled. We're going to leave the male end right here. We're going to pop our glove box. And you don't have to get too crazy and drop this down too low for this part. We're going to feed this in the center of the dash, and we're going to pull it out in our glove box. It really is that simple. It comes out right here. I'm just going to pull a little excess so you have a little bit more room to pull it. And this is going to sit right about here and plug into the back of your nav unit. So for now, we're just going to tuck the rest of that USB in there. Whenever you don't need it, it's in. And whenever you do need it, you just pop the glove box, you can pull it out, and it reaches all the way to your cup holder. So if you want to plug your phone in and just sit it in the cup holder, that's a really cool functionality to have. So I'm going to, for now, tuck that in. And we'll be able to talk about that and show you that a little bit later on. If your vehicle is equipped with a factory backup camera, again, ours is not, so I can't show you the steps. That harness that we hooked up to our aux cord, right underneath of the cup holders at the center console, it has a couple of additional wires. A brown one, a yellow one, and then a loose red and black wire, power and ground. These are for your backup camera. You're gonna hook that straight up here. The rest of this harness is gonna feed right to the back of the unit. So brown is labeled camera, they have tags on them. Brown's labeled camera. The yellow is the video in, so that puts the video signal to your display unit, the Navos display unit. Black wire is your ground, red wire is your power. So with a camera, you'll have to power and ground them. But of course, if you're using your factory camera, go through the steps in the manual and they'll show you how to do that. Because we don't have a backup camera, I can't take you through those steps, so we're gonna leave them capped off. If you don't have a camera, just leave those plastic caps on the end of that. You see they come off. The power and ground wires are also safely capped. Do not remove them if you're not using a backup camera. You don't want your power and ground touching anything metal inside. You don't want to short circuit. Since we're not using them, we're gonna set that harness aside. The next step, and this is going to apply to everyone. So we're out of the way of the sync only, back to the full install. We're going to plug in our antenna adapter to the factory antenna we unplugged originally. The antenna adapter has the metal pin at the end, and it's more of a turquoise or teal and purple color for the connector. Now that metal pin is going to go right into the black cap on our factory one. All right, now we can grab the Navos antenna adapter, and for your convenience, it actually is labeled ANT for antenna right on the black wire. We're going to take the metal pin and connect it to the factory antenna harness. Now this is a snap-in fit. You should feel it tightly snap into place. If this is not properly secured, this is going to directly affect your radio signal. You want to make sure that this is tight in there, make sure it's connected properly. Otherwise, you will have a poor signal or no signal at all. So we felt the snap. For now, we can just tuck the wire in. This will get plugged into the back of our new Navos unit. All right, the next step, we're gonna grab our GPS antenna harness. Now that is literally labeled GPS active antenna on the back end. This end is our connector that's gonna go back into the GPS unit, or the nav unit rather. It has a lot of excess wiring coiled up here. You wanna loosen it up and get just a little bit of slack on that line. You wanna have a little bit of wire allowing this to stretch. This end here is the really important part. This has a magnet right in the middle. You see that circular imprint, that's a magnet. That's gonna activate some of this GPS antenna signal. So we wanna get this to hook onto a metal bracket on the inside of this dash. Now there's a really specific way you wanna have it. If you have it hooked on sideways, this is not gonna give you the best antenna signal. Same thing if it's on the back, on the sides, or if it's upside down. It's not gonna give you the best signal. We wanna have it mounted flat with the black portion facing directly upward. Now the only place that we can really get that to be, mounted flat just like this is up in the top. Now I know it's a little tough to see, but if you go straight upward, you can attach this to a metal bracket above this black unit. Right above it, toward the back a little bit, there's a metal section hooked onto. You can see where that's hooked up. This wiring, you just want to loosely coil it like you see here, pretty much the exact same way it was out of the box. If it's wound too tight, it affects your GPS signal, so make sure that's loosely wound. The same thing with that magnet. If it's too loosely attached, you'll get a poor signal, so make sure that's secured. From here, we're just going to feed the excess wiring down and bring this harness toward the front. Essentially just like this. Now, this excess wiring, we're just going to tuck to the back. If you need to, you can zip tie it out of the way, but just tucking it back there should do the trick. From here, this will plug right into our nav unit, so we're just going to let that hang. The next step is our microphone. Now this is important to have that talk to text functionality where you hit the button on your steering wheel or you hit the button on your unit and you're able to talk and have some navigation with your voice, so on and so forth. So this is a pretty critical portion if you want to get this installed. Now there's a couple of places you can do this. It has 3M tape already on the back here with that 3M backing. It'll allow you to stick this wherever you need to. A good spot typically would be on the steering column above the actual wheel where it turns, that solid portion. Another good spot is up by your sun visor. Those are close proximity areas to your, to your mouth, to your voice, so it picks up a good voice recognition. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to feed it from the middle here. I'm gonna mount it right on the top of the steering column. I'm gonna feed it from the middle, bring it around, and I'll turn the wheel so you guys can see it a little better. And I'll pull it through this gap and mount it right on the top. All right, now this wire is a pretty good length for a reason, so it gives you a wide range of abilities of places to put this. Now I'm gonna do the steering column like I said, so I'm just gonna take that clip or that plastic tie off. I'm gonna take the microphone portion, I'm gonna go right around this left side here. You're gonna keep going all the way until you see your fingers through the crack on the steering column. Just gonna feed this through, and you'll start to see it come out. It's really simple, you don't have to reach too far. You just wanna make sure you're getting a good grip on it to pull it through. Now if your gap isn't big enough, of course you can lower the steering column since it is that tilt steer. You just want to get your fingers in there, and it might be a little difficult at first. You might have to do it a couple of times. Just try to feed this through. Once you get it through, you're going to peel off that 3M tape. Now I'm going to straighten out that wheel and set it right in the center. Perfect. Just put pressure on it so the 3M gets a good stick. From there, you can feed that harness wire. There is a lot of excess, so it might be a good idea to tie some of that back like we did with the GPS antenna wire. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give it some slack. I'm just gonna rope it up a little bit, just like it was out of the box. Again, just make sure this is loose. You're not doing anything too tightly. Kinking any of those wires can sometimes mess it up a little bit and not give you a good connection, not give you a good response, and end up ripping them. I'm gonna take that factory plastic tie that it came with, just put that right back on. Of course, this is optional, and it all depends on where you end up mounting the microphone. Get that tied back a little bit. Now this will plug into the back of the unit, so we can set that down. All right, the next step is gonna involve our main harness connection. So it can get a little tricky, so you guys wanna make sure you're paying close attention to how this is plugged in. So first I'm gonna move these wires just out of the way so we have enough room and it doesn't get a little too confusing. This harness here is our main wiring harness. This is the main connection between our Navo system and our factory harnesses that we unplugged in the beginning, these two gray clips. This big tan clip is gonna plug into the big harness. And this square clip, there's two here, one's square and one's rectangle. The square clip is gonna go to the square factory clip. That's pretty simple. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. If your car is not equipped with the Shaker amplifier audio system, you can skip this next step at the back end here. If you are equipped with the Shaker audio system, you have a couple more harnesses that you have to hook up before we move forward. So I'm gonna focus on you guys real quick, so everyone with the Shaker system, pay close attention here. This harness with the brown connector at the end is the Shaker integration harness. This is a Shaker retention harness, essentially. This is gonna hook on to one of these black connectors at the back end. Now, as you can see, one black connector has a clip in the middle and one is a little more toward the top. The one in the middle is the one we're gonna focus on. It's the only one that's gonna work, so if you know, it's a little trial and error and you'll figure that one out. This is gonna snap in. You'll see that connects pretty nicely. At the back end here, there are 4 RCA cables, the red and the white. Each one's labeled, so this one's right front, this one is right rear. This is left rear, this is left front. They're all labeled with these tags. You're gonna take the amplifier output harness, which has all labeled as well. Line out, rear left, line out, rear right. Line out, front left, line out, front right, and then the subwoofer out. So we're gonna ignore that for just a second. These 4, you wanna uncap, because we're gonna need to plug them in. Go to the back of the integration harness we just plugged in, the brown harness here. Find the first one. Let's do left rear first. Doesn't matter which one you start with. Left rear is gonna go to the white harness labeled line out, rear left, rear L. Those are gonna connect together. It's always gonna be white to white, red to red. You're just gonna keep moving on. Right rear is gonna go to line out, rear right. You can see that right on the tags. The next one, right front, is gonna go to the other red harness labeled front R, front right. That'll plug in. Next one, the last one here, left front on the integration harness goes to front L on the amplifier output harness. Perfect. If you have the Shaker audio system, the rectangular one will plug into the factory Shaker harness in the vehicle. For the guys without the Shaker audio system, this is unused. This will not get plugged into anything. You're just gonna focus on the tan harness clip and the square gray harness clip. All right? So that's taken care of for the Shaker guys. Now, because we do not have the Shaker system, I'm gonna unclip this. We're not using that. Our vehicle does not have the Shaker system. To unclip this, you're just gonna pinch down and unclip it. So I'm gonna set that aside. We don't need that. Focusing up here, the square one is gonna go to the factory square connector. You'll hear that snap in. And that tan colored one is gonna go to the factory one. Again, you'll hear that snap into place. This, not used. This wire here is more of an open splice. This one gets crimped into remote starters. If your car is equipped with the remote starter, here's the harness to plug that in. Ours, again, really being a base model, doesn't have any of those options, so this is gonna go unused. We have subwoofer in the mid. These two are gonna go to subwoofers again. Now, if you have aftermarket subwoofers, if you don't have the Shaker system, but say you picked up an aftermarket amplifier, you can use that Shaker harness. This whole harness will be very useful for the guys with aftermarket audio systems too. Because ours, again, is the base model, we don't need that. But keep that in mind. If you ever do add in amplifiers in the future, it's a good harness to keep. You don't want to throw it out. That makes everything really easily plug and play. With that said, we're ready to move on to the next step. So the next step is the fun part, right? We're getting to put in our nav unit. Now, before we start, I did tape off the top of our shifter simply because we don't want to scratch the bottom of this, and I'm going to be propping it up toward you guys to show you how it works. So for right now, we're going to prop this into place. I'm just going to lay this right about here, and we're going to start plugging things into these connectors. Now, it does have 3 wires already hooked up, set into place on the back of the unit. We're just going to slide those up to the top. We're not going to do those just yet. I'm going to save those for last. But for now, we're going to start with our main harness, which of course it can differ depending on whether or not you have that Shaker amplifier hooked up. If you remember earlier, we had this wiring harness hooked up, the amplifier retention harness, and the video input and output harness. That is going to be hooked up to your main harness for the guys with the shaker system. So we don't have that, we're gonna set that aside. With that said, let's jump into some of these wiring connections. All right, we're gonna start off with our main wiring harness. Now, of course, this is where the shaker amp comes into play. That connector with the middle clip is what goes to that shaker harness. So since we do not have that shaker harness, we're gonna plug that directly into the back of our unit. And there's two spots here. They only fit in one spot, so a little trial and error, you'll figure that one out too. We're also gonna plug in that second connector to that black portion. That snaps right into place. Attached to the main wiring harness is the smaller connector. Now we're gonna pull down this one already attached to our unit. Those two get plugged in together. They snap right into place. Now, keeping on with these, they are both labeled. One says system, one says media. System is an additional option. We're not going to worry about that on our unit. But for media, this USB connector here, that's gonna go to your sync cable. So if you have that sync adapter, that's gonna plug in here. If you do not have sync, the USB extension that I ran to the glove box is gonna get plugged in. So that's what we're doing here. Sync guys connect here, non-sync guys connect the USB extension cable to this. Snaps right into place. So that takes care of the three up top. These two additional wires on our main harness are for additional subwoofers. Again, not equipped in our vehicle, but if you do have it equipped, you can utilize those, whether it be aftermarket or factory. This turquoise colored connector, if you remember, this is our antenna. That first wire that we hooked into the factory antenna harness, that's gonna reach on over here, so I have to slide the unit a little bit closer. That's gonna reach on over and connect to the turquoise connector on the back of our unit. So the color coordination really, really helps. That snaps into place. The blue one right above it is the GPS antenna. If you remember, we connected that in the dash with the magnet. That's gonna snap into place here. Just follow that around and that snaps into place as well. Now, the three in the middle are next. Aside from that, there's the microphone aux cord. That's what we put directly on our steering column. That gets connected there. Now back in our center console, we're gonna pull up what connected to our aux cable. That's one of the first things we did as well underneath the cup holders. That has a white connector. That white connector is actually gonna get plugged directly into one of these white slots. Now they're each very specific to what they use. Now the plug here has your camera cords. So if you have a backup camera, that's plugged in here. It also has the power and ground cables. And additionally for everyone, it's gonna plug into the aux connector in your center console. So that white connector is gonna go right in the middle. That left slot's an option. One of the last harnesses I haven't talked about yet is this one here. It's a video output. It's an optional harness. Now for my guys out there, fans of the early 2000s MTV show Pimp My Ride, if you have video monitors in the back of your headrests, if you have monitors in your trunk for whatever reason, this is going to come in handy for you. Most people are not going to use this harness, but if you have a customized ride and you have additional monitors or additional head units around your car, whether it be in the trunk or the back of the headrests or in the back seat somewhere, this is what you're going to use. If you are utilizing that, this small white connector is going to go right next to the microphone, right in between your antenna extension cable and your microphone aux cable. It's going to go right in here. But again, most people won't use that, including us, so we're going to set that aside. The last slot is another harness I haven't talked about yet. This is the Sirius XM radio harness. This is another option. This does not come built into the unit. You will have to plug this in to an additional module. This white connector gets plugged into the unit, but the opposite end here is going to connect into a Sirius XM module, sold separately, not included in the kit. If your vehicle comes equipped with the Sirius module, you can plug that in here, and you'll utilize that and plug it right into the back of the unit. We, again, do not have Sirius XM, so we're not going to be using that. If you pick up that additional module separately at any point in time, hold on to this and you can reuse it. That goes for any of the harnesses included in the kit. If you upgrade and you do pick up a shaker system or an aftermarket amp, use those harnesses included in the kit. If you pick up the Sirius XM, use that harness included in the kit. Same thing goes for the backup camera harness in the center console. Now at this point, we have essentially all harnesses plugged in to where they need to be plugged into. All right, at this point, we're ready to put this back in the vehicle, but we're gonna reinstall those white plastic clips we took off in the beginning of the install section. We're gonna snap those right onto the edges. And just for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna do 3, but you should have about 6 or so. You wanna make sure you're using all of them, but just for the sake of video, to show you guys what's going on, we're just gonna use 3. So for here, we're just gonna prop up our unit into place, but we're not gonna fully reinstall it just yet. We wanna test and make sure everything works before you waste all your time putting it back together just to find out you gotta take it all back out to fix an issue. And also, when we go to really install it, we're gonna feed these harnesses underneath of this trim panel. And I'll show you guys that in just a bit. Now that we have everything plugged in, we just wanna test it out, grab your keys, turn it on, and see how everything works. All right, once you test out all of the features, make sure all the buttons work properly, everything turns on when it's supposed to, everything's reactive. You can turn the car off, that's a crucial part. Make sure you turn everything off, take your key out of the ignition, and we're gonna unplug the one harness leading underneath of your center console. This is the one going to your aux cable, your aux connectivity in the center console at least. This also may have your backup camera hooked up to it, as well as some of the other harnesses. This, I'm actually gonna feed underneath of this trim. The reason being, if we just connect our head unit back into place, the harness is gonna get trapped between the bottom of this and the center console. So what I'm gonna do to avoid that is just feed it underneath of that little trim piece. It's not really that hard. Just go straight underneath with it. You can pull it out the other end. This will prevent those wires from getting caught up and pinched. This again isn't required, I should say. Like, you don't have to do this. You could of course just leave it as is, but I find it to be a little bit easier just to do this way, preventing any wires from getting kinked up. Feed that all the way through so you can get the majority of this harness inside. Make sure everything stays connected as it needs to be. Here, feed that back up and just plug it right back in. With that said, tuck all your wires in. It's time to get this thing installed. Everything's gonna go right inside. You can just tuck them up nicely. Snap it into place, make sure those white connectors snap in, and we're gonna take our factory 7mm screws and screw them right onto the bottom, and it'll hold it in place. All right, we have 2 of those factory screws that we took out in the beginning, those 7mm. They're gonna go right into those pre-drilled holes at the bottom left and bottom right. Goes nice and tight. You don't wanna over tighten them, they'll strip right out of that hole, so you wanna make sure you're just getting it nice and hand tight, and then maybe a quarter turn after that. So right about there, it's hand tight, quarter turn, and she's in there nice and tight. You should feel no wiggle room in this head unit. All right, now we're gonna pick up that center console. Before we put it in place, the wire that runs to our aux connector, the one we just tucked in, you can set that to the corner, the inside bottom corner, just to get it out of the way so it doesn't get crushed by the center console. There are other wiring harnesses running along the edge of this trim that you can just tuck it right on next to. You can zip tie it if you want, but it does sit pretty nicely by itself. Now, we did tape off our thread pitch on the shifter. You wanna make sure you're getting that tape off if you did that as well. Reconnect that harness before you do anything. Feed your shifter, your manual shifter if you have one, back into the shift boot. Reconnect this edge with your new trim. Pop open your center console, and this should snap all right back into the same factory spot. If you need to, you can open your cup holder. Just put pressure all around, it'll snap right back into place. Shut the cup holder. You can grab your shift knob and tighten that back down. Perfect. Now, in order to get all navigation functions, you're gonna need to insert the micro SD card included in the kit to the slot at the bottom that's labeled nav. You're gonna input that, push it right in. You can use a pin or your fingernail to just click it in. It'll literally click into place and sit flush. If you ever need to remove it, a pin or your fingernail, you can insert it into there and it'll pop right out. Now, something worth mentioning here, as you can see in the bottom left and the bottom right, there are blank buttons. They do come with filler buttons for heated seats. So if you have a heated seat equipped 2010 to 2014 Mustang, You can pop these out, just pry those out with something really thin, a thin flathead, maybe a pin of some sort. Pop those out, you can pop these into place. The functionality for heated seats is already built into the unit, so you just need to insert those buttons here. These buttons will actually be pushable, these are not. So we don't have a heated seat equipped Mustang, we're not gonna do that, but it does include these in the kit. See, it even has the light right there, so it'll actually light up when you put them in. So that was worth noting. Once you start your car, you'll be greeted with the Navos loading screen, especially the first time. It might take a little bit to load up, but once it does, it's good to go. Now, before we jump into the actual main menu and walking through some of the features, let's focus on the buttons down here, because this is still a pretty big change. Now, it might seem very basic, but there are some relocated buttons, a few different logos and whatnot going on down here. Now, first and foremost, the bottom section, you have all of your AC controls, power on, power off, really, really interactive. Everything works to the touch as it's supposed to, which I think is pretty impressive. I think sometimes when you look at aftermarket stuff, you expect some kind of delay or lag. This is really responsive almost immediately. So you have guys with dual climate controls. That is still a function that you can retain. Now, while there isn't the dual climate control button here, whereas you can have it on one side and the other, instead that'll be up in the screen. So that's all taken care of down here. Larger buttons in the middle for, feet, face, and the defrost, so on and so forth. That's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to jump too far into detail with this. It does come with a navigation micro SD. That is going to be required for you to have navigation function in the unit, but it does come with it in the kit. So you just open up the case, pop that in here, and it'll prompt you to load everything up. We already have that SD in there because I want to take you through some of those features. Up top, you have a lot of the actual entertainment system controls, volume knob on the left, mute button also. This is going to toggle through your scan for your AM, FM features. You have phone connectivity, voice, so you can just touch to talk, similar to sync functionalities, mute, nav, so on and so forth. This button here, I think, is one of the more interesting ones. This one is a multitasking button. You can actually program whatever function you want to this middle button. So what I like to do is look at all of the buttons and choose something that doesn't already have a function on the interface here. So something that you don't see would be Bluetooth. So if you connect your phone to Bluetooth all the time, it might be a good idea to program Bluetooth to this button, which I actually think we have programmed here. As a matter of fact, it looks like it goes right to the air conditioning. So that is good for guys with dual climate control who like to take advantage of that all the time. You might want to just tap that button, bring up the dual climate control, and have that functionality here. Same thing goes for guys with heated seats. The buttons are there as well. But you also have replacements for the blank spots at the bottom left and bottom right. Those can be replaced for heated seats, and the buttons are included in the kit. So that pretty much takes care of everything you see here. We might come back to that in just a little bit, but let's take it back to the main menu. As you can see, it is very responsive. There's no lag time whatsoever with the touchscreen. Main menu number 1, the first page here, is going to have all of your basics. You have radio, navigation, iPod, if you connect an MP3 player or something like that that isn't your phone. There is smartphone connectivity as well, media, and USB. Now, media and USB kind of go hand in hand. Media can be something that is has playback to it, like multimedia movies and such. USB connects a USB stick to the port that we put in our glove box. But that, of course, can be routed anywhere. The glove box can be rerouted to the center console, so on and so forth. Radio, pretty straightforward. Nav is something I wanted to mention. And if you see this jump back and forth, keep in mind that anytime you're at the main menu for X amount of time, it's actually just going to default right back to the last thing you had open. So that is something to keep in mind. So if you go into Nav, I'll just show you guys that real quick, because that is a huge, huge upgrade for the guys like us who just have a very simple base model S197 that didn't come with any of those functions. So navigation is one of the biggest upgrades you'll get out of this, aside from the actual touchscreen itself. Jumping into it, we have that micro SD card slot inserted. This is the basic navigation main menu. You have the map on the left, you have destination, route options, and more. Now, more just takes you into a lot of settings for the navigation. Things like sunrise and sunset, you can change the time clock, so on and so forth. Navigation unit of measurements. But if you click on the map, we're gonna bring that up and see what that looks like. Now, basically, we're in a garage right now, so there's not a whole lot to see on the map, but this is essentially what it's gonna look like. You know, your pretty general 2D map. This also does have built-in 3D functionality, so in larger cities, you'll get 3D viewing of skyscrapers and the city buildings. Larger cities like LA, New York, Philly, things like that, all have that built in. all through the US and Canada. So all of North America essentially is built in to your navigation. Now, if we want to take that back, you're going to hit menu. You can type in your destination right there. I don't want to take you guys through all of that just yet. There's route options. You can click on more. I'll just give you a brief update on that. You can clock fuel consumption, sunrise and sunset, I think is a pretty cool feature. See where the sunrise and sunset is on the map. There's picture viewer, unit of measurement conversions, so on and so forth. Some really strange features, I think, that are pretty unique to the system, such as the calculator and the clothing. Clothing, you might be wondering what that is, and essentially you can track unit of measurements for different shopping experiences. Calculator's another option, so pretty cool features, very unique to this particular unit. So we're gonna take you back home, move on a little bit. iPod, straightforward. You plug in an iPod to the aux cord in your center console, that aux connector, that factory unit, that'll pop up into this menu. The same thing goes with, say, one of the newer gens that plug in with the USB. That's something that will pop up there. If you just plug your phone in and have no intention of using phone mirroring or smartphone mirroring features, that would use the iPod. Phone, making phone calls. That's a new feature to this too. If you had the base model like we did, this is something that you'll be able to take advantage of. Stores contacts, has favorites, really easy to navigate. Something you'd expect from a newer generation car. Media we talked about, USB we talked about. So if we move on to the second screen, another couple of features. We have more navigation features. Info, you can pop up if you're interested in getting some information about your series. If you ever need to do software upgrade, that happens here. You can download software upgrades to a flash drive, plug it into a USB drive in your glove box, and click upgrade. It'll load everything off of that USB. We're gonna go ahead and take it home. NavPath files, another thing that accesses files if you have a USB stick included. Camera, if you have a backup camera loaded on, that will take advantage of it here. You can just pop it up and see what's going on behind you. This vehicle is not equipped with a backup camera, so we're not going to jump into that. Audio, another one of the options. You can mess with equalizers, loudness, source, fade, balance, delay, treble, things like that. You can adapt navigation tones. There are beeps every time you click a button on the nav. We have that turned all the way down. It's called the confirmation tone, so you can hear it. You'll have some of those beeps. It's extremely loud if you put it all the way up, so we actually turn that off. It's personal preference. And if you noticed, every time we go at the menu, on the top right, there's a back button. So that's essentially how you're going back. There's no back button in the buttons below. It's on the screen itself. System settings, really easy to go through. One of the cool things I think about this to, customize it to your personal preference. Color is an option. So right now we have it on blue. Say you're a big fan of red, and tap on the red. It changes all of the highlighted areas to red. Just to go back, there's orange, there's green. So it's sort of like a My Color. It's not as in-depth as a My Color in like the factory settings on your Mustang, but it does give you some sort of functionality. So if you have My Color in your vehicle, you can have them linked to your gauges, kind of match up the colors for what's available in the head unit. Change your region, change your unit of measurement, brightness, all the things that you would typically get. If you have dual zone climates, you do actually have to activate that. You'll hit that and it'll give you that option when you change back over to the AC screen, which we have programmed to our multimedia thing. So that's something definitely worth noting. That button, by the way, also controlled here in the settings menu. If we go ahead and click on that, we can change that to whatever we want. If you would want something easily accessible like navigation, you can have that programmed here. There is a nav button. I would personally recommend changing this to a setting that doesn't already have its own button, such as Bluetooth audio. So let's change it to Bluetooth. We're gonna go back home. Now if we wanna jump straight to the Bluetooth menu, we just hit that and it'll automatically connect to whatever's connected to our Bluetooth. Now my buddy Rob's phone is connected right now. He's rocking some corn. But you also have your battery life and your cell data connectivity, your cell service up in the top right when you are connected to a Bluetooth cell phone device. Back home, really cool features there. Again, we saw AC already. So if we move on to the third menu, which by the way, you can actually just tap these dashes at the bottom instead of scrolling. That's another option. We can tap that and move on. AV is an option if you have something connected to the audio video cords that we ran under the center console. That would show up here, you can connect there. SD card, it does have SD card functionality if you want to put an SD in. Bluetooth audio you can get from here. Obviously there's the smartphone mirroring and hard drive. You can connect the hard drive to the USB function there. So a lot of different ways to customize this that come along with that USB slot. Plugging in a hard drive or a flash drive, you can actually change the background of this entire home screen to whatever you want. You just got to load the picture or pictures to a USB flash drive or a hard drive, plug it in, and you'll be able to flip through it through the USB option on the first page, or you can go to the media option. There's a file, there's a whole lot of ways to access that from your navigation. So now there are some things that I can't show you now, like smartphone mirroring, the way it would mirror exactly what you see on your smartphone device. There are certain dongles that come with the kit to activate that on certain branded smartphones for you to activate and access that software on your new nav unit from Navos. So a lot of different things that are included in the kit. I just wanted to give you the brief overview of what you see here. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my review and full walkthrough of the install for the Navos OE style navigation unit for the 10 to 14 Mustang, regardless of your interior or exterior package. This thing's gonna fit any S197. It's a huge upgrade with the 9-inch touchscreen display, backup camera ready, sync capabilities built in, navigation software already preloaded with all North American maps. Huge upgrade for the guys who have a base model S197 like we do here. Lots of really good stuff. Plug and play install, super simple to get done. If you have any questions about this unit, our customer service team is hot and ready to get you what you need as far as info. If you have any questions, give them a call and they'll be happy to help. I hope this install walkthrough helped. I think it was a comprehensive walkthrough, but again, if you have any questions, we're happy to help. Leave a comment if you have any questions or concerns. We'll be happy to reach out to you. And if you want to get the Navos unit for your own S197, you can do so right here at AmericanMuscle.com.